So I went out in the world, you know, at 15, and my stepmother at the time, we've had a few. My stepmother at the time, you know, she'd already had like 4 or 5 kids. She was in the later part in her. She was like in her 40s or something like that, late 40s, maybe mid 40s. And the way that she ran, you know, she was a crazy woman. She wasn't all. Not everyone is everything all the time and bad, right? So there were good things too. Don't get me wrong. And the way that she ran her family life, she had 1 or 2 ex-husbands at that point. The kids were from different fathers, like 2 or 3 different fathers. One of her children was in an insane asylum. Like there was stuff in this woman's in life, and it was hard, right? Like when you have a child that has something like that happen, you know, because I think there were, you know, that I never got the full story there, but you know, and like her children are already in their early 20s, mid 20s. And so by the time she wound up with like a 6, 7, 8-year-old kid again, and her that wasn't where she wanted to be in life. And so she ran our home as if she still had 5 or 6 children, where they all had chores and they did everything, because part of her life was making sure that she you know, could keep a roof over the head of those children. She had to become a hard woman. She was a very hard woman. She only basically had one mode of speech, and that was at the top of her lungs and almost yelling. Very rarely was it anything else. She wasn't completely devoid of love, but she was low. She didn't have much love or patience left for shenanigans, right? So, you know, here's the thing, right? Is that I had this woman in my life for, you know, and in my father's life, and it wasn't great. You know, she was, like I said, a very hard woman, you know, and that's just what that was, right? And it took me a long time to get right? Like to understand that, like that was straight up like verbal abuse, physical abuse, right? Like I'm not like a broken kid, but you know, that was, you know, she was from a different generation, and you know, you hit your kids with a switch. That's what you do, right? Like when they're not doing what you want them to do. And I guess, you know, it took me a while to just realize that, you know, like once you go out in the world and you're your own person, and you realize that, you know, these lessons that these people have shared with you, some of those lessons aren't great. You know, I would never hit any of my kids. I only have one, but I'd never hit any of my kids with a switch. Like that shit hurts. Like it's supposed to hurt, but I think that's at a level of that's at a level of like shit that you shouldn't do to other human beings. That's at a level of violence that's a little too much, right? Like welts and, you know, all that craziness. I think that one of the things that's important is that I wouldn't be the person I am now if it wasn't for her, it wasn't for my dad, it wasn't for the people around me that were part of that point in my life, right? Like I did not like being an indentured servant, you know, and I didn't like that we had basically a slobby house because you know, it was my job to clean it all the time, you know. So and I've learned how those things have affected me as a human, as a person, and I still find that I can appreciate them for doing the best they could. Sounds like a cop out, you know, they could have done better, but shit, you know, like none of us, whenever you decide you want to judge another person for their behavior, ever truly will ever fully understand what it's like to walk in the shoes of that person. You just don't know. You don't know how they think. You don't know how they feel. You don't know what their triggers are. You can get to know these things about a person, but it's still proxy. You can never truly be that person. And who the heck knows, you know, like, you know, we have, as a people, as a society, right? We have histories of abuse, you know, it's very common. It makes the holidays a rite of passage sometimes. But it's what you decide to do with that. It's what you decide to own from that, and not be afraid of those things any longer, to not let those things drive you. Those are the things that become the hallmarks of how you change, become the person you want to be. If you didn't have people that were fuck ups in your life, you wouldn't be able to see those fuck ups and understand how to learn from them. Everyone makes mistakes. Some people make bigger mistakes than others. So